Maybe you've been in a record store and you've seen a little strip on the top of a record that says Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs or Original Master Recording. Well, that's the calling card of one of my favorite labels, Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, also known as MoFi, and these records sound incredible. Some of them sound better than others, but for the most part, these are all from original analog tape, so the recording is as pure for vinyl as possible. In this video, I'm showing off 5 MoFi records that I think everyone should own, not just because they're classic albums, but because they sound terrific. If you haven't already, it'd be awesome if you'd like this video, hit the red subscribe button, and turn your bell notifications on so you don't miss out on any weekly videos I put out. Starting off with an absolute classic, this is the Beatles' Abbey Road. I don't need to say too much about the quality of this album in terms of the music. This is my favorite Beatles album. It has the incredible medley on side 2, and some of their strongest tracks on side 1, including Come Together, Something, and I Want You. Now, most pressings of this record sound pretty good, including the recent remaster that isn't a MoFi record. This is a MoFi record from the 70s, so this is definitely an older pressing, but it sounds great. Compared to some of the early pressings that I've heard, this is a lot warmer. It has that element that you want to hear out of Beatles on vinyl. And, I mean, you just can't go wrong having the MoFi version of it, even if some of the recent remasters sound pretty good too. My buddy Adam picked this up for me at a record store knowing that I was looking for it for a while, so thank you, Adam. I think if you want a couple pressings of Abbey Road, that's fine, but make sure this is one if you can find it. Next up from a similar era, Bob Dylan, the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. I can never really pick my favorite Bob Dylan album. Blonde on Blonde is my most obvious choice, and I'm actually looking for the MoFi pressing of that for a fair price. But this might be my number 2. It is an absolute classic. It comes with this really nice gatefold. Hear that gatefold crackle? I haven't opened it too much. Some great pictures of Bob in his prime. He was so young when he worked on these songs. It's mind-blowing. He has the wisdom of like a grizzled 70-year-old man, but he's just, I think, early 20s? I unfortunately have this belief that there's no Bob Dylan album that is without filler, but I do think some of his strongest tracks are on this record. The first side is so strong, with Blowin' in the Wind, which is one of his biggest songs, of course, Girl from the North Country, before he re-recorded it with Johnny Cash, and then Masters of War, which is one of the most lyrically intense songs I've ever heard. Pure poetry, and it ends with A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, which is another fantastic Bob Dylan track. The second side opens up with maybe my favorite Bob Dylan song, at least top 3, Don't Think Twice It's Alright, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. And the rest of the songs are classic early Bob Dylan tracks that are just so poetic and so powerful for the time they were released. This is essential listening for Bob Dylan fans, and the MoFi version of it, it sounds like he is in your living room with you. It is so intimate and well recorded. His vocals have never been clearer, and I just think compared to some early pressings I've heard of this that aren't MoFi, this brings his music to life in that in your living room way that you really look for with vinyl. I would say this is a definite pickup for anyone that's a fan. Jumping forward a few decades, we have Dead Can Dance, Spirit Chaser. Dead Can Dance is one of those bands where they have such a massive amount of material that most people are not familiar with, and there's very little fluff. It's all excellent for what it sets out to do, which is this really atmospheric, tribal, ambient music. It has a lot of punch to it, but it also utilizes such unique sounds throughout their music. Dead Can Dance is arguably one of those bands where almost every album of theirs deserves a MoFi pressing because of those sounds, those unique sounds that happen throughout their albums that are really separated and brought to life with so much energy on a high-quality audiophile pressing. This was the first Dead Can Dance album I heard as MoFi, and I've recently picked up another one, Into the Labyrinth. I think those are the only 2 that are on the MoFi label, but I'm hoping more get pressed as time goes on. If you have not heard Dead Can Dance, throw on some headphones and listen to this album, and you'll understand what I'm saying. You'll need to hear this with the highest fidelity possible, and I can tell you this right here is one of the best sounding records in my whole collection. And jumping forward even more, the next 2 records are relatively modern compared to the 3 I just showed, and I think they're the only MoFi records on colored vinyl, which is also cool. The 1994 garage rock classic, Weezer, The Blue Album. I've been hit or miss with Weezer their whole career. I think there are some songs on the Green Album and the Red Album that are definitely worth their merit. I know some people like their new stuff. I haven't really been into anything since then, but the first 2 records, Pinkerton and Blue Album, both of which have MoFi pressings, are fantastic. And for me, the most nostalgic and best Weezer songs fall on this record. If you're not super familiar with the band's discography, this honestly reads like a greatest hits. My Name is Jonas, Buddy Holly, Undone, the Sweater Song, Surf Wax America, Say It Ain't So. These songs are just iconic sing-alongs. They're absolute jams. And the musical talent that these guys had on this album really comes to life on an audiophile pressing like this. Everything sounds so punchy and so fit for vinyl, and I love this amazing blue marble that they did with it. These are numbered on the back. Mine is 1567, but like I said, I think this one and the one after are the only colored pressings that MoFi has ever done. It'd be cool to get some more variants moving forward, especially for modern records, of which there were very few MoFi pressings. I would love for them to kind of dig into some of the music I grew up with in the 90s and early 2000s and give those analog treatments if the tapes exist. But for now, I'm happy with the ones we have. And last but certainly not least, Beck Sea Change. A lot of people say that the MoFi version of Sea Change is one of the best sounding, if not the best sounding record in their collection. I wasn't sure until I heard it myself. I once picked up a black copy of this, but it was VG+, so it was a little noisier than I want for an intimate album like this. But recently, I found an incredible steal of a deal on the pink vinyl version of this, and it was sealed, so I knew the discs would be immaculate. Sea Change is one of Beck's simpler albums. It is not as experimental as some of his other stuff. It doesn't bring in influences from world music like Mutations, but for me, I think this album might be his most intimate and honest songwriting. One of his biggest songs, Lost Cause, is kind of the linchpin towards the middle of this record, but every single song on this evokes great emotion, and Beck vocally has hardly ever sounded better. That's why this deserves a MoFi pressing. It is so dead quiet and is so powerful and separated. This also feels like Beck is in your living room, much like the Bob Dylan record, and that is a rare treat. I'll show you guys the really nice pink marbling that this one has. Again, very rare for a MoFi record to have this kind of pink, colored record, but it does not sacrifice sound quality at all. And I promise you, even though the recent repress of Sea Change sounds great, if your system's good enough to decipher the nuances between pressings, even a little bit, this version is going to blow the repress away. So those are my favorite MoFi records. There's a lot on my hit list. I would love to find the MoFi Journey Escape record and the Boston self-title, but those go for hundreds of dollars. Maybe one day I'll get lucky and someone won't know what they have. But leave a comment with one of two things. Either your favorite MoFi records you own, or the ones that are on your want list. One day, I'm hoping they press Sounds of Silence with a MoFi record, but for now, we can just dream. Thank you guys for watching this video. There's more coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed, your notifications are turned on, and stick around for more great vinyl content. Thanks for watching.